The Valorian Empire had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. No one remembered a time before the Empire. No one could imagine a time after it. Emperor Kelthron sat on his throne made of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Around him stood advisors from 17 different species, all of them conquered long ago. His empire covered 400 star systems. Billions of beings served him. He had never known fear in his 300 years of life. On this day, a messenger ran into the throne room. His face was pale with shock. He fell to his knees before the emperor and spoke words that would change everything. Great Emperor, unknown ships have appeared at the edge of our territory, hundreds of them. Far away at the border of known space, Admiral Grace Sullivan stood on the bridge of her ship. The United Earthship Endeavour was the largest vessel ever built by human hands. Behind it, arranged in perfect rows, waited 247 warships. They had traveled for 18 months through empty space, following strange signals that promised intelligent life somewhere ahead. Grace was 52 years old. She had gray in her brown hair and lines on her face from years of command. She had trained her whole life for this moment. First contact with aliens. The dream of every human who had ever looked up at the stars. Lieutenant. Commander Kevin Moore walked up to her with a tablet in his hands. He was young, barely 30, with nervous energy that never seemed to fade. Admiral, sensors are picking up massive structures around the fourth planet. Cities, stations, ships. There are billions of life signs. Grace looked at the holographic display floating in front of her. Blue dots represented her fleet. Ahead, the alien system glowed with activity. She felt her heart beating fast, but kept her face calm. Her crew needed to see strength. Open all communication channels, she ordered. Send our greeting message. Every language format, every mathematical code we have. Let them know we come in peace. Communications officer Diana Reyes worked at her station. She was a small woman with quick hands and a brilliant mind for languages. Message sent, Admiral. We are also receiving signals from them. Thousands of channels. The whole system is reacting to us. In the Imperial capital, chaos had erupted. No one had seen ships like these before. They were ugly by Valorian standards. Blocky shapes made of metal and ceramic. They used primitive fusion engines that left trails of fire behind them. Their weapons appeared to be simple energy projectors and some kind of mass launchers. But there were so many of them. High Commander Vethril was the Emperor's chief, military advisor. He had commanded fleets for 200 years. He had never lost a battle. Now he stared at the sensor readings with growing worry. Where did they come from? He demanded. Our sensors watch every part of space. We should have seen them coming months ago, Junior Officer answered with a trembling voice. They appeared from Subspace Commander. A method of travel we have never seen. They simply appeared out of nothing. That is impossible, Vethril said. But the evidence was on the screen in front of him. Emperor Kelthron called his war council together. The Great Hall filled with military commanders and advisors. Holographic displays showed the alien fleet from every angle. The room buzzed with worried conversation. The Emperor raised his hand. Silence fell immediately. What do we know about these creatures? He asked. Intelligence Minister Velinosh stepped forward. She was old even by Valorian standards, with silver skin and eyes that missed nothing. Very little, Great Emperor. They call themselves humans. They come from a small planet in a region of space we considered empty and worthless. They have been sending signals for many years, but we ignored them. Why were they ignored? Because they seemed primitive. Great Emperor. Their technology was basic. We did not think they were worth our attention. The Emperor considered this. In 12,000 years, the Empire had absorbed every species it met. Some had joined willingly. Most had been conquered. All had become part of the Imperial Order. These humans would be no different. Send the 4th Battle Group, he commanded. Establish our dominance. Bring their leaders to me in chains. We will show them what happens to those who enter our space without permission. High Admiral Zethfer received the order with satisfaction. He commanded the 4th Battle Group, 60 of the finest warships in the Empire. His crews were veterans who had crushed rebellions and conquered worlds. This would be a simple task. On the human side, Admiral Sullivan waited. She had hoped for a peaceful response. She had prepared for something else. Admiral Kevin reported, "We are detecting a fleet moving toward us. 60 vessels. They are armed." Grace nodded slowly. "Have they responded to our messages?" "No, Admiral. They are ignoring all attempts at communication." Diana Reyes looked up from her station. "Admiral, I am picking up their internal communications. They are not coming to talk. They are coming to attack." Grace felt sadness wash over her. She had dreamed of meeting aliens since she was a little girl. She had imagined exchanging knowledge, sharing cultures, learning from beings who saw the universe differently. Instead, she was about to fight a war. "Signal all ships," she said. Her voice was steady. "Battle stations. Prepare for hostile contact." Throughout the fleet, alarms began to sound. Men and women ran to their positions. Weapon systems powered up. Shield generators hummed with energy. 247 ships transformed from explorers into warriors. On Earth, no one knew what was happening. The fleet was too far away for instant communication. Messages would take weeks to arrive. Whatever happened next, humanity would learn about it long after it was over. Grace stood at the center of her bridge, watching the enemy fleet approach. She thought about her daughter back on Earth, just starting college. She thought about her husband, waiting for her to come home. She thought about the billions of people who had put their trust in her and her fleet. Admiral Kevin said quietly, "They will be in weapons range in 10 minutes. I know." Grace took a deep breath. "All ships hold formation. Do not fire unless fired upon. If they want to fight, we will give them one. But I want it on record that we gave them every chance for peace." The alien ships grew larger on the display. Their weapons were charging. There would be no peaceful first contact today. Grace Sullivan had come to the stars hoping to find friends. Instead, she had found an empire that wanted slaves. She had spent her life preparing for this moment, though she had prayed it would never come. "All hands," she announced to her fleet, "this is Admiral Sullivan. We came here in peace. They have chosen war. Show them what humanity is made of." The first battle between humans and the Valorian Empire was about to begin. High Admiral Zethver stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Imperial Vengeance. He was tall, even for a Valorian, with dark blue skin and eyes that glowed faintly orange. He had commanded fleets for 150 years. He had never known defeat. The human ships filled his display screen. They were holding position, not retreating, not advancing. Their formation was tight and organized. Zethver felt a small flicker of respect. At least these creatures had some courage. "They are attempting to communicate again," his signals officer reported. "They are asking for dialogue." Zethver made a dismissive gesture with his clawed hand. "The Empire does not talk with lesser species. We conquer them. Target their largest ship and fire all weapons." 60 Imperial warships opened fire at once. Beams of superheated plasma crossed the distance between the fleets in seconds. The concentrated firepower could melt asteroids. It had destroyed countless enemy vessels over the centuries. The beams struck the human flagship. Admiral Sullivan gripped her command chair as the whole ship shook violently. Alarms screamed. Crew members stumbled at their stations. "Damage report," Grace ordered. Kevin Moore studied his displays with wide eyes. His voice carried disbelief. "Forward shields holding at 67%. Their weapons are powerful, but the energy disperses quickly. Our armor is absorbing most of the heat." Grace allowed herself a small smile. Human scientists had always worried about alien technology. They had imagined weapons that could destroy planets, shields that nothing could penetrate. They had prepared for the worst. The reality was different. The Valorians were advanced, but not impossibly so. Their weapons were designed to fight enemies with similar technology. They had never faced anything like human engineering. "Return fire," Grace commanded. "All ships, weapons free." The human fleet responded with everything they had. Railguns accelerated metal slugs to incredible speeds. Missiles carrying nuclear warheads launched by the hundreds. Laser batteries fired in coordinated bursts. The first Imperial cruiser never saw what killed it. A railgun slug traveling at 40,000 kilometers per second punched through its hull like paper. The ship exploded from the inside out, scattering debris across space. Zethver watched in shock as a second ship died. Then a third. Then 5 more in rapid succession. The human weapons were primitive compared to plasma technology. They were also brutally effective. "Impossible," he whispered. The Imperial ships had shields designed to deflect energy weapons. They worked by creating magnetic fields that pushed plasma away. But the human weapons were not energy. They were solid matter moving at unbelievable speed. The shields could not stop them. "Hi, Admiral. We have lost 12 ships," a tactical officer reported. His voice was shaking. 15. 18. "Return fire," Zethro shouted. "All ships, concentrate on their flagship." The Imperial fleet poured fire into the Endeavor. The human ship's shields flickered and flashed. Armor plates glowed red from the heat, but it did not fall. Admiral Sullivan watched her display as her fleet tore the enemy apart. She felt no joy in it. These were living beings dying out there. But they had chosen this fight. She had given them every chance. Admiral Diana called out, "The enemy flagship is turning. They are retreating." Grace saw it too. The Imperial formation was breaking apart. Ships were fleeing in every direction, trying to escape the killing ground. "Should we pursue?" Kevin asked. Grace considered for a moment. "No. Let them go. Let them tell their Emperor what happened here today." Of the 60 ships that High Admiral Zethver had brought to battle, only 17 survived to escape. The rest were debris floating in space. Thousands of Imperial soldiers were dead. Zethver sat in his command chair staring at nothing. His hands were trembling. In 150 years of warfare, he had never experienced anything like this. The humans had crushed his fleet in less than an hour. The news reached the Imperial capital at the speed of light. Emperor Kelthrin listened to the reports in complete silence. His advisors stood around him, afraid to speak. 43 ships, the Emperor said finally, lost in a single engagement. "Yes, great Emperor." High Commander Vethril looked like he had aged 100 years. "Their weapons are unlike anything in our records. Kinetic projectiles moving at extreme velocity. Our shields are useless against them. How is this possible? They are a young species. Primitive. How can they defeat the Empire?" No one had an answer. In the days that followed, Imperial intelligence worked frantically to learn everything they could about humanity. They intercepted communications, analyzed captured equipment from destroyed human ships, interrogated the few human prisoners they had taken. What they learned terrified them. Humans were a violent species. They had spent their entire history fighting wars against each other. Every generation had known conflict. They had developed weapons to kill each other with horrible efficiency. Nuclear bombs that could destroy cities. Chemical weapons that melted flesh. Biological agents that wiped out whole populations. They had brought all of this knowledge to the stars. The Valorian Empire had evolved differently. They had unified their planet early in their history. War was rare among their kind. When they conquered other species, it was usually quick and overwhelming. They had never faced an enemy that fought back with such ferocity. Emperor Kelthrin called another war council. This time the mood was different. The arrogance was gone. Fear had taken its place. "We will send a larger force," the Emperor decided. "The second and third battle fleets combined, 1,000 ships. We will overwhelm them with numbers." But even as he gave the order, doubt crept into his mind. If 60 ships could not defeat 200 humans, would 1,000 ships be enough? Would 10,000? Admiral Sullivan sent her report to Earth. It would take weeks to arrive, but she wanted her people to know what had happened. She also sent a request for reinforcements. The Empire would not give up after one defeat. This was just the beginning. She looked out at the stars and wondered what came next. She had won a battle, but the war was far from over. The Empire had ruled this region of space for 12,000 years. They would not surrender easily. "Diana," she said, "keep working on their language. When this is over, I still hope we can talk to them. I still hope there can be peace." Diana nodded, but her eyes were sad. "Do you really think that is possible?" "Admiral, after today." Grace was quiet for a long moment. "I have to believe it is, because if we can only destroy each other, then what was the point of coming to the stars at all?" Outside, the debris of 43 Imperial warships drifted slowly through space. The first battle was over. Humans had won. But somewhere in the Empire, 1,000 ships were preparing for war. 3 months had passed since the first battle. Admiral Grace Sullivan had established a forward base on a frozen moon at the edge of the contested zone. Supply ships arrived, every week from Earth, bringing new ships, fresh crews, weapons, and most importantly, information. The human fleet had grown to 400 vessels. New captains arrived with eagerness in their eyes. They had heard about the victory over the 4th Battle Group. They wanted to be part of history. Grace gathered her senior officers in the command center. Holographic displays showed the surrounding space in blue light. Red dots marked the positions of Imperial forces. "Intelligence reports a massive fleet assembling in the Kethrin system," Commander Nathan Hughes reported. He was the fleet's chief tactical officer, a quiet man with a sharp mind. "Over 1,000 warships. They are preparing for a major offensive." Kevin Moore whistled softly. 1,000 ships. "Even with our reinforcements, we are outnumbered more than 2 to 1. What do we know about their tactics?" Grace asked. Nathan pulled up historical data on the display. "The Empire has always fought the same way. Direct confrontation, overwhelming force, linear formations. They advance in a wall of ships and destroy anything in their path. It has worked for 12,000 years, because they have always been the biggest force on the battlefield," Diana added. "They have never fought anyone who refused to stand and face them." Grace studied the display thoughtfully. Humanity had been fighting wars for 10,000 years. Every generation had learned from the one before. They developed tactics that no alien species had ever seen. "Then we do not give them a direct fight," Grace decided. "We fight our way. Spread the fleet into small groups. Fast attack squadrons. Hit and run. We make them chase shadows." Over the following weeks, the human fleet transformed. Instead of one large force, it became dozens of small ones. Squadrons of 10 or 15 ships scattered across the sector. They hid in asteroid fields, behind moons, in the darkness between stars. High Admiral Tethkai commanded the Imperial Armada. He was older than Zethver, more experienced, more cautious. He had studied the reports of the first battle carefully. He would not make the same mistakes. "We will advance slowly," he told his captains. "Maintain formation. Watch for ambushes. These humans fight like animals in the night. We will bring them into the light." The Armada moved forward like a great wave. 1,000 ships in perfect formation, bristling with weapons. It was the largest fleet the Empire had assembled in 3 centuries. They found the human base on the frozen moon abandoned. Structures were empty. The sensors were dark. Tethkai felt unease crawling up his spine. "They knew we were coming," he said. "They left before we arrived." "Perhaps they fled," one of his officers suggested hopefully. The first explosion answered that hope. A nuclear device hidden beneath the moon's surface detonated, destroying 6 ships instantly. Then another explosion, and another. The humans had turned the entire moon into a trap. Tethkai ordered his fleet to pull back, but the damage was done. 20 ships were destroyed before they escaped the kill zone. "Cowards," he growled. "They refused to fight like warriors." But the worst was yet to come. Over the following months, the humans waged a campaign unlike anything the Empire had ever seen. Small human squadrons appeared without warning, struck at vulnerable targets, and vanished before the Empire could respond. Supply convoys were destroyed, fuel depots were bombed, communication satellites were disabled. Commander Nathan Hughes led many of these raids himself. His squadron specialized in hitting enemy logistics. They called themselves the Grey Wolves, and they became feared throughout the Imperial fleet. Another convoy destroyed, Nathan reported to Admiral Sullivan after one mission. 15 supply ships. "We lost 2 fighters, but their crews ejected safely. Pick them up." Grace nodded. "Good work." "How is their fleet responding?" "They are frustrated. They keep trying to catch us in a decisive battle, but we never give them one. Their fuel reserves are running low. Their crews are exhausted from constant alerts. This was the human way of war. Now, not glory and honor, but grinding, relentless pressure. Attack the enemy where they are weak. Void their strengths. Never let them rest. Break their will to fight. Diana Reyes continued her work on alien communications. She monitored Imperial broadcasts constantly, listening for useful information. What she heard was encouraging. Their morale is falling, she reported. The crews are scared. They call us ghosts. Some of them believe we can appear anywhere, strike without warning, vanish like smoke. They are starting to lose hope. Admiral Sullivan felt sympathy despite herself. War was terrible for both sides. But the Empire had started this fight. They had refused peaceful contact, had tried to conquer humanity. Now they were learning the cost. On Earth, the public followed the war with growing pride. News of each victory spread quickly. The Grey Wolves became heroes. Children played games where they pretended to be human pilots fighting the alien empire. President Margaret Cole addressed the world from the United Nations building. "We did not seek this conflict," she said. "We reached out with friendship, and they answered with weapons. But humanity will not submit. Humanity will not bow. Every man and woman in our fleet carries the hopes of our entire species. They will not fail us." The war continued. The humans captured 3 Imperial colony worlds, freeing the conquered species who lived there. They learned that the Empire was built on slavery, that billions of beings served masters they had never chosen. This knowledge hardened human resolve. They were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting against tyranny. High Admiral Tethkai sent desperate reports to the Emperor. "We cannot catch them. They strike from nowhere and disappear. Our supplies are running low. Our crews are exhausted. We need reinforcements or we must withdraw." Emperor Kelthron read the reports with cold fury. The greatest military force in the Empire was being torn apart by an enemy half its size. The humans fought without honor, without rules, without anything the Empire understood. "Send them more ships," he ordered. "Send them everything. I want these humans destroyed." But even as he spoke, he felt doubt growing in his heart. The Empire had never faced anything like this before. For the first time in 12,000 years, victory was not certain. Admiral Sullivan stood on her bridge, looking out at the stars. 6 months of constant warfare. 6 months of running and striking and running again. Her crews were tired, but their spirits were high. "They were winning," Admiral Kevin said. "Message from Earth. More reinforcements are on the way." "Another 200 ships?" Grace smiled. "Good. We are going to need them. This is not over yet." She was right. The war was far from finished, but the balance had shifted. The Empire was no longer the hunter. Humanity had become something they had never expected. Humanity had become the predator. Emperor Kelthron had not slept in 3 days. He sat alone in his private chambers, surrounded by reports and displays that told a story of disaster. The war had lasted 18 months. In that time, everything had changed. The humans had pushed deep into Imperial space. Over 300 warships lost. 3 colony worlds captured. Trade routes disrupted across the entire sector. The economy was struggling under the weight of total war, but it was not the military situation that kept the Emperor awake. It was the report sitting on his desk, written by Intelligence Director Velanash. He had read it 40 times. Each time, it filled him with a deeper sense of dread. He summoned his war council. The great hall filled with advisors and commanders. They looked tired and worried. The confidence of 18 months ago had vanished completely. "Director Velanash," the Emperor said, "share with the council what you have learned about humanity." Velanash stepped forward. Her silver skin seemed duller than usual. Even she, who had seen empires rise and fall, seemed shaken. "We have conducted extensive research on the human species," she began. "What we have discovered is deeply concerning." She activated a holographic display. An image of a blue and green planet appeared. It was beautiful in its way, covered with water and clouds. "This is Earth, their home world. A single planet. Nothing remarkable by imperial standards. She paused. 8 billion humans live there. The room fell, completely silent. Grand Vizier Halloran spoke first. That cannot be correct. Our entire species numbers 4 billion, spread across hundreds of worlds. How can one planet hold 8 billion? They breed rapidly, Velanash explained. A human female can produce offspring every year if she chooses. Their population doubles every few generations. They have been living on their planet for 200,000 years, but they only developed space travel 40 years ago. In that time, they have established 12 colony worlds. High Admiral Tethkai leaned forward. 12 colonies in 40 years? Yes, and their population continues to grow. Conservative estimates suggest they will have 50 colony worlds within the next century, with a combined population of over 20 billion. The numbers hung in the air like a death sentence. The Empire had been fighting a small, exploratory fleet, a fraction of humanity's true strength. If Earth committed its full resources to the war, they could build thousands of ships. They could crew them with millions of soldiers. There is more, Velanash continued. Their industrial capacity is remarkable. They can build a warship in 6 months. Their factories run constantly. They have been at war with each other for most of their history, so their entire civilization is designed to produce weapons quickly. She showed images of human factories, shipyards, military bases. The scale was staggering. Currently, they are producing approximately 50 new warships per month. That number is increasing. Within 2 years, they will be able to produce 100 ships per month. Within 5 years, 200. Emperor Kelthrin finally spoke. What about our own production? We are producing 30 ships per month, Great Emperor. We could increase that, but our economy is already strained. Our conquered species are growing restless. There are reports of rebellion on several worlds. The Emperor closed his eyes. He had ruled for 3 centuries. He had overseen the conquest of 4 species. He had believed the Empire was invincible. He had been wrong. What do they want? He asked quietly. These humans. What are they fighting for? Velanash considered the question. They want security. They want recognition. They want to be treated as equals, not as prey. When we attacked them without cause, we convinced them that we were a threat that had to be eliminated. They will not stop fighting until they believe they are safe. High Admiral Tethkai slammed his fist on the table. Then we fight harder. We commit everything. Every ship, every soldier, every resource. And if we lose, Grand Vizier Halloran asked quietly, the Empire does not lose. The Empire has never faced an enemy like this. Look at the numbers, Admiral. Even if we destroy their current fleet completely, they will build another one, and another, and another. They will keep coming until we have nothing left. The room erupted in argument. Some demanded total war. Others spoke of desperation and surrender. The Emperor let them argue, lost in his own thoughts. He thought about his ancestors, who had built this empire from nothing. He thought about the species they had conquered, absorbed, made part of the imperial order. For 12,000 years, that system had worked, but it only worked against enemies who could be conquered. Enemies who were smaller, weaker, fewer. Humanity was none of these things. Enough, he said finally. The room fell silent. I will speak. He stood and walked to the great window that overlooked the capital city. Billions of lights stretched to the horizon. His city, his empire, his people. When I was young, he said slowly, my father taught me that the strong rule and the weak serve. This is the law of nature. This is the foundation of our empire. For 12,000 years, we have proven this truth. He turned to face his council. But what happens when we meet someone who is not weak? What happens when we meet someone who is strong in ways we never imagined? Someone who fights not because they want power, but because they refuse to submit? No one answered. The humans are not like us. They are not like any species we have encountered. They are young and violent and terrifying. They have weapons we cannot stop and numbers we cannot match. If we continue this war, they will destroy us. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually, certainly, completely. Grand Vizier Halloran stepped forward. "What would you have us do, Great Emperor?" Kelthron was silent for a long moment. Everything he had been taught, everything the Empire stood for, demanded that they fight to the last ship. To surrender was unthinkable. To negotiate was weakness. But he was not just a warrior. He was a ruler. His duty was to his people, not to his pride. "Contact the humans," he said. "Request a ceasefire. Propose negotiations." Tethkai made a sound of disgust. "You would bow to these animals? I would save my people from destruction. Is that not the duty of an emperor?" The message was composed and sent that evening. It crossed the vast distance between the fleets at the speed of light. Throughout the Empire, military operations paused. Ships held their positions. Soldiers waited in uncertainty. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Valorian Empire asked for peace. In the imperial capital, citizens watched the news in disbelief. The Empire had never retreated. The Empire had never negotiated. The Empire was eternal and invincible. But the Empire had never met humanity. Emperor Kelthron stood at his window as night fell over the city. He had made the hardest decision of his long life. History would judge whether it was wise or foolish. But at least there would be history. At least there would be an empire to judge him. The war had frozen. Now everything depended on what the humans chose to do next. Admiral Grace. Sullivan received the Emperor's message on a quiet morning. She was drinking coffee in her ready room, reviewing casualty reports from the latest engagement. When Diana Reyes brought her the translation, she read it 3 times to make sure she understood. The Valorian Empire was requesting a ceasefire. They wanted to negotiate peace. Grace set down her coffee and stared out the viewport at the stars. 18 months of war. Thousands of lives lost on both sides. And now, finally, a chance for something different. She called her senior officers together. The command room filled with tired faces. They had been fighting for so long that war had become normal. Peace seemed like a foreign concept. "The Empire wants to talk," Grace told them. "They are proposing negotiations. Ceasefire first, then discussions about a permanent settlement." Kevin Moore was suspicious. It could be a trick. A way to buy time while they rebuild their forces. "It could be," Grace agreed. "But our mission was never to conquer. We came here to explore, to make contact with other civilizations. If there is a chance for peace, we have to take it." She contacted Earthen, recommended accepting the Valorian offer. The message would take weeks to arrive and more weeks for a response to return. But she knew what the answer would be. Humanity was winning the war, but winning was not the same as being safe. Peace would benefit everyone. While waiting for orders from home, Grace ordered a complete halt to offensive operations. The human fleet pulled back to defensive positions. For the first time in months, no one was shooting at anyone. The Imperial forces did the same. 2 great fleets sat watching each other across the darkness of space, waiting for something new to begin. When the response from Earth finally came, it was everything Grace had hoped for. President Cole authorized negotiations. She also sent a diplomat to lead them. Daniel Foster arrived 3 weeks later aboard a fast transport ship. He was in his 50s, with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen much of the world. He had resolved conflicts on 4 continents before being chosen for this mission. Now he would try to make peace with aliens. "Admiral Sullivan," he said when they met, "thank you for your service. You have given us this opportunity. I hope I can make the most of it." Grace shook his hand. "I hope so too. I've fought these people for 18 months. I would very much like to stop." The negotiations were held on a space station constructed specifically for the purpose. It sat in neutral territory, surrounded by ships from both sides. Human and Valorian engineers had built it together, their first cooperation after so much destruction. Daniel Foster led the human delegation. Imperial Ambassador Several led the Valorian side. They met in a large circular room, sitting across from each other at a curved table. For a long moment they simply looked at each other. Several was tall and blue-skinned, with eyes that glowed faintly orange. Everything about him was alien. And yet, Daniel could see intelligence there, and something that might have been hope. "We did not come to your space seeking war," Daniel began. "We came looking for knowledge and friendship. We hoped to find neighbors among the stars. Instead, we were attacked." Several inclined his head. "The Empire has ruled this region for 12,000 years. We are accustomed to dominance, not partnership. When you appeared, we saw only prey. We were wrong." "You were wrong," Daniel agreed. "But we do not have to remain enemies. The galaxy is vast. There's room for both our peoples." The negotiations lasted for months. There were arguments and accusations. Old wounds were opened and examined. Both sides had grievances. Both sides had losses to mourn. But slowly, carefully, they built something new. The final treaty had three main parts. First, boundaries. The Empire would recognize human sovereignty over the territories they had claimed. Humans would respect imperial borders in return. Second, prisoners. All captured soldiers would be returned to their own people. Third, the future. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, a joint commission to resolve disputes peacefully. It was not perfect. It's nothing built by flawed beings ever was. But it was a beginning. Emperor Kelthron signed the treaty in his throne room, surrounded by his advisors. His hand did not tremble as he made his mark. He had made his choice, and he would live with it. "Today we begin a new chapter," he told his people in a broadcast across the Empire. "For 12,000 years we have been conquerors. We have ruled through strength alone. True strength is not just the ability to destroy, it is also the wisdom to build. These humans have taught us that there are limits to force. Now we must learn to be partners instead of masters." On Earth, President Cole made a similar announcement. "We have proven that humanity will not be conquered. But we have also proven that we can show mercy and wisdom. This peace is not an end, it is a beginning. First step toward a future we cannot yet imagine." Admiral Grace Sullivan remained in space, commanding the permanent fleet that would protect human interests in the sector. She watched as the first trade ships crossed the old battle lines, carrying goods between two civilizations that had been killing each other just months before. Diana Reyes joined her on the observation deck. The stars stretched out before them, countless points of light in the darkness. "Do you think it will last?" Diana asked. "The peace?" Grace thought about the question. History was full of peace treaties that had failed. Former enemies rarely became true friends. There would be tensions, conflicts, maybe even more wars in the future. "I do not know," she admitted. "Peace is harder than war. War is simple. You just have to kill your enemy. Peace requires understanding, patience, trust. Those things take generations to build." "Then why do you look so hopeful?" Grace smiled. "Because we have time, because we have a chance. 18 months ago, we did not even know these people existed. Now we have treaties and trade routes and diplomats arguing about tariffs. That is progress." She turned to look at Diana. "We came to the stars dreaming of finding other civilizations. We found one. It almost destroyed us both. But here we are, still alive, still talking, still trying to understand each other. That is more than most species get." Below them, a Valorian transport ship docked at the station. Its crew would spend the next week trading with human merchants, learning human customs, sharing their own culture. Small steps, but steps nonetheless. The war was over. The hard work of peace had begun. On Earth, children would grow up knowing that humanity was not alone in the universe. Some of them would become diplomats working to strengthen ties with the Empire. Others would become explorers, searching for more civilizations among the stars. The Valorian Empire would change too, slowly. The conquered species would gain more rights. Military would learn new tactics. The old ways would fade as new generations grew up in a galaxy where humans were neighbors, not prey. It would take centuries. There would be setbacks, and conflicts, and disappointments. But the direction was set. The choice had been made. Admiral Grace Sullivan looked out at the stars and felt, for the first time in a very long while, something like peace. "We did it," she said quietly. "We actually did it. Humanity had arrived among the stars. An empire had frozen in their path. And somehow, Against all odds, they had found a way to live together. The universe was vast and full of wonders yet to be discovered. But for now, for this moment, there was peace. And that was enough.